I have always loved being in the limelight and performing for people ever since I can remember. But it took me a very long time to realize that that was my calling in life. People often think of public speaking as just speaking on these big stages, these big formal events, formal conferences, big presentations to senior management. But every single Zoom call where you're speaking to more than one person is public speaking. People are very painfully aware of their shortcomings, but they don't always give themselves enough credit for what they're already doing well. How can you improve how you're speaking in public? By understanding the tools that strong speakers use. Things like, those are 3 important and significant exercises that I do. It's going to be a little funny, a little weird, but it will absolutely work. So that's the 24-hour challenge.
Welcome to the Nomad Solopreneur Show. I'm your host, Gabe Marushka, joining you on your solopreneurship journey as you learn, build, and grow. Today, I got the chance to sit down with Nausheen Chen, a French-Pakistani public speaking coach and a 3-time TEDx speaker. She has coached CEOs and B2B founders of fast-growing companies to speak on BBC, TEDx, Bloomberg, Business Insider, TechCrunch, and much more. She has helped execs at companies like IBM, Amazon, Walmart, and Procter Gamble to build their personal brands through speaking on camera and on stage. She has more than 15 years of speaking and coaching experience, all the way from Fortune 50 giant Procter Gamble to bootstrapping a communication strategy startup to 1 million in revenue. Nausheen is currently helping leaders to speak with high impact on stage and on camera. And in today's episode, she spilled the beans on how anyone can improve their speaking on camera or in person. She shares the exact exercises she uses with her coaching clients and shares with you a short challenge to apply right away. You don't want to miss this episode. Public speaking is a skill that anyone should learn. Let's jump straight into it. Hey Nausheen, welcome to the show.
Hey Gabe, super excited to be here.
Excited as well. Finally, we got the chance to sit down and record this episode after a long time since we connect. Can't wait to share your story with our audience.
Me too. I think you know my story really well, maybe too well by now. So for those of you listening who might not know, Gabe and I have been working together for a while. So he knows my story inside out and he's helped me tell it in many different ways. But it should be exciting to tell it through your podcast.
For sure. And I will try to forget everything I know about you. Be able to ask as good questions as possible. But I know that you've been a radio show host when you were just 19 years old. And now you're become a renowned public speaking coach. And I want to ask you, how that transformation happened and what catalyzed that to start focusing on public speaking?
That annoying kid who always got up on stage in front of their parents and the entire family and started reciting the most boring poem ever. So I used to be that annoying kid. I have always loved being in the limelight and performing for people ever since I can remember. But it took me a very long time to realize that that was my calling in life because, of course, I tried everything else along the way. I started off my career in the corporate world, in the Fortune 50 world in Procter Gamble. I did marketing and PR, which was fine, but I also became one of the youngest trainers there in communication skills. So at 22, I was training people much older than me, much more senior than me in communication and presentation skills. And I still didn't realize that maybe that should be something I should be doing full time. Fast forward a few years later, I've had this wonderful late quarter life crisis where I broke away from the shackles of the corporate world and started adventuring in different things, going down different rabbit holes. I tried stand-up comedy, improv, theater, writing and directing for a crappy little late night comedy TV show, found myself studying media in New York, and then became an entrepreneur, which was never on the cards, as a filmmaker. And I was a filmmaker for 7 years, but I never felt like a filmmaker because it was just something that I had fallen into. And all the while, the only thing that I was really passionate about was helping people give their best performance on camera, whether they were my actors or whether they were CEOs of companies who were speaking on camera for the first time in their product launch video, in their corporate documentary. And I realized that was the only part of the entire process that I really looked forward to. So I took 17 years of just performing on different stages, and I took that passion for helping people perform better on stage and on camera, and I combined them, smooshed them together into my coaching business, which I launched last year. And now I finally feel like this is something I should have been doing. This is something that is my calling. I just hadn't listened to my instincts for 17 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. And it's funny, isn't it, how life throws at us different challenges or different things that we must try before actually finding our calling. And in the same time, nothing is really random because all those things from improv to opening your business in filmmaking helped you become the person you are today. And speaking of that, what do you think was the main win from all those trials that made you become the coach that you are today?
I've never thought of one big win, but I would say it's probably flexibility. I had to be flexible and adaptable from a very young age. I've had a lot of things change in my life, really big changes. I found out I was adopted when I was 18 years old. So my entire universe and the way I had thought about my life and my family completely changed. My dad died even before that when I was 10. And we moved cities a lot. After that, I've moved countries and continents a lot. And of course, changed careers. So my whole life has been a life of big changes. I went through a divorce, remarried, went on many different adventures all over. So I would say that both professionally and personally speaking, I have learned the art of rolling with the changes, making big changes work for you, even if you're not in control of the change itself, because you rarely ever are. It's more about figuring out what you can do with it, how you can respond to these external events that are happening around you. And then, of course, to gather the courage to also be the agent of change in your own life, which I learned much later because I was a very happy-go-lucky, let's go with the flow kind of person for a very long time, for almost 27 years, 27, 28 years. I was never a big change maker at all. But now I've learned to not just roll with the changes, but also create change. And I bring that into my coaching for sure, because I do believe very strongly that all of us are capable of change, and all of us are capable of being flexible and adaptable to change that we cannot control.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so when life throws at us difficult moments like those and things that we have no idea sometimes that happens, being adaptable and being able to overcome those news in our life or what the environment throws at us, it's not only a huge skill, but it's probably one of the main things that drives leaders forward. Because without being adaptable to change, without being able to change what life throws at us or to master our environment around what we have at our disposal, it's impossible to progress and to lead. How important was all these changes in your life to become someone that is going beyond the norm, to strive for greatness and to be able to make others be and speak as the leaders they have inside them? How that's helping you become the coach you are today?
Well, when clients come to me, they have already been through some kind of suffering, some kind of struggle. They know that they really want to be impactful when they speak. They want to impress people. They want their speaking to open doors for them, but they feel stuck. They feel like they're not able to step into that version of themselves that they know they can be. The fact that I've in a way, reinvented myself many times. I don't believe that there is just one version of you that you are stuck with. Let's say that you were born or you grew up very shy or timid. I grew up in a way where my natural extrovertedness was never truly encouraged. I was the youngest child in a family where everyone else was much older than me. So I was the youngest child by far. So no one ever really thought I had anything important to say. So even when I wanted to be sociable and wanted to express my opinion, I was laughed at. It was just the kind of environment I was growing up in. No one really cared too much about what a young person thinks. Everyone had to conform to specific rules. Knowing that I was uncomfortable in that space and I had to somehow get out of it and really become the person I knew I could be took a lot of time, but it's entirely possible. It's possible to reinvent yourself. It's possible to get that person out from within you who you can be. If it's, for example, that outgoing person or that authoritative person, that person who's not afraid of showing themselves, showing up on social media and telling their story. If you know that is inside you, then my coaching is all about helping you get that version of you out, refined, polished, and showing that to the world in a very natural and authentic way. Because we're all so incredibly multifaceted. So understanding that just because you are one way right now, which is holding you back, maybe it's your shyness, maybe it's the fact that you were shut down a lot and now you don't know whether or not you should trust your own opinions and speak out when you want to. Knowing that you can overcome that and become this more powerful version of yourself. That's really at the core of my coaching.
And how you can realize that? Because often we have a certain idea about ourselves that we are in a certain way. Most of the time, probably society or the environment that we grow up in is telling us that. There are any exercises or ways of asking specific question or introspection in order to dig a bit deeper and actually finding out, oh, wait, I'm not just this person. I actually can become this one. Inside, I'm actually this, and so on.
Yeah. So through my experience, I realized that there were a few different things holding people back. One was this fear of being unprepared. So I can't go and present tomorrow. I don't have the right skill set. I'm not as skilled as that other person who can always go and smash every presentation they do. So this sense of not having all the tools to be a strong speaker. And then, of course, this fear of being an imposter, fear of being judged by other people, being questioned, being challenged. Oh, what if I say something and someone disagrees? What am I going to do then? Or what if someone asks me a question and I don't know the answer? Everyone's going to think I'm a fake. Maybe I am a fake. Maybe I don't belong on that stage. Maybe I don't belong on social media making a video about what I do or how I help people. Maybe I'm just an imposter. Taking a clue from those two insights, I work with people on two different levels. One is what I call the outer level, which is them learning the skills. So how can you improve how you're speaking in public by understanding the tools that strong speakers use? Things like eye contact, gestures, expressions, voice tonality, paces, pausing, all the tools that a strong speaker would use to make an impact. But that's still the outer work, which is important because it makes you feel more prepared. Even if you don't feel that confidence inside, at least I have these tools. I know how to stand a certain way and use my hands in a way that shows confidence, even if I don't feel that confidence. But that's only half the work. Then we tackle that other part. Why don't you feel confident? What's the inner work that we need to do to make sure that you feel like you belong on that stage? You belong giving that talk to senior management. You belong on this podcast with Gabe talking about your work. What is it that's holding you back? And that, of course, is longer term work. And that's where coaching comes in. And I did really work on that. I'm formally training as an ICF coach as well. So really understanding how coaching works, exactly what you said earlier. What kind of questions can you ask to guide someone on their own journey of change, of transformation, helping them realize what is it that has been holding them back, and helping them realize that they are not prisoners of that thing, of that fear. And they can very much go beyond that and surpass it. It's really up to them.
Definitely. And it's in our ability to reveal what we have inside us and what talents we hide, what abilities that we have no ideas we can discover. And as a quick example, I realized when I was in high school that I'm actually talented at playing basketball, when I was an anti-talent at any sport I try all my life. So you never know, literally. And I'd like to ask you to give at least 3 examples of questions that you usually ask them when you coach.
Oh, sure. I can give you examples of 3 different exercises that we do, because the actual questions that I ask, it really depends on the scenario, on the person, on their situation. But we do a number of exercises that I pretty much do with all my clients. The very first thing that we do is that we find out where they are right now in terms of their current strengths and opportunity areas. So we start with a self-evaluation of their speaking skills. And I also have them do an anonymous peer evaluation. And for most of my clients, this is the first time that they ever are going out to their friends, their teammates, their seniors, maybe even their people that have managed them in the past, people that might have been in their teams in the past, and ask them through the survey, can you tell me how I come across as a speaker? How do I come across in a Zoom call? How do I come across when I'm giving a presentation? And it's all anonymous. So the idea is not to figure out who's saying bad things about you, but really getting that feedback that can really help you understand, first of all, what is it that you're already doing well? Because people are very painfully aware of their shortcomings, but they don't always give themselves enough credit for what they're already doing well. And that is unfortunate, because what you're already doing well, if you can be intentional about it, you can really get to exceptional level. And what you have as an opportunity area, you can work very hard and maybe get yourself up to about average, maybe above average. But being exceptional in something that's an opportunity area, there's just so much more work to do. But the gap between where you are at, if something is a natural strength for you, and where you can be, if you keep building on it intentionally, that gap is much smaller. So the idea behind that evaluation exercise is really to understand not just what you're not doing well, but what are you already doing well that you may not be aware of. And a second exercise that we do a little bit further down is my 45-second speaking exercise, which I always get all my clients to do both during our sessions and by themselves in between sessions. So the idea is really simple. You take FAQs about your work, your industry, things that you can talk about at a moment's notice without preparing, and answer those questions, record yourself, and time yourself for 45 seconds. This is a great exercise in making sure that you are speaking in a concise way, making sure that you can articulate your ideas on the spot, and of course, getting clients in the habit of watching themselves back, which is, as you probably know, a hugely cringeworthy exercise that all of us have to do. Once you rip that Band-Aid off and you actually watch yourself back, you realize, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was. In my head, I thought I was this eloquent speaker, but I'm actually a stuttering, repetitive, somewhat average speaker who meanders and then finally finds their way home. And you have to do that as a necessary step towards becoming great. So that's a second exercise that I do with my clients, which always gets great results. And a third exercise that I do is we do a lot of improvised speaking. This is where I take my training and my years and years of performing improv, and I have people not just speak in an improvised way, but also do some improv exercises that helps them come up with ideas on the spot, articulate their ideas on the spot, and do it in a manner which doesn't let them overthink things. A lot of my clients really live inside their heads. They keep thinking and rethinking and rethinking things. So let's say I ask them to do a 45-second exercise. Sometimes they will do 10 takes before sending me one. So doing an improv exercise in our session makes sure that they're not doing those extra 10 takes. They're really trusting themselves in the moment to come up with the ideas. So those are 3 really important and significant exercises that I do.
Indeed, if you are able to come on a spot with a presentation that it's so short, it's huge. And those keep on repeat recordings, tries are just not working because after 3, all of them are worse than the first 3.
Yeah.
And usually the first or the second is always the best. And when it comes to this type of exercises, for those that want to put their first foot on this public speaking scene, what will be the first and the most important step they have to make? Probably they never record a video of themselves, never had the opportunity to speak. This is absurd because most of us, we speak in class, for example, in school or something. But let's say they didn't have that chance. What they can do as a single step in order to start this route?
So I'm going to suggest 2 steps that can pretty much be done at the same time. First is understand your why. Understand why you want to go and speak. What is it that really motivates you? Because that's what's going to help you work on it in the long term. Because it's definitely not going to happen overnight. You're not going to find yourself on a TEDx stage the next day. Unless maybe you've already won a Nobel Prize. Then you're an exception. But you're not going to be getting to that result very soon. It's going to take months, maybe sometimes years of hard work. So the very first thing, understanding your motivation and remembering it each time that it feels hard is super important. And the second thing that you can do at the same time is to start small. You actually touched upon this when you said that actually everyone has spoken at some point in their lives. Those of us who are, of course, gifted with the ability to speak. We have to take every single opportunity that we speak as an opportunity to practice and get better. People often think of public speaking as just speaking on these big stages, these big formal events, formal conferences, big presentations to senior management. But every single Zoom call where you're speaking to more than one person is public speaking. Every single presentation that you do online to your team, every single team meeting that you might do every Monday or Tuesday, that's public speaking. So if you can take all these opportunities and be more strategic and intentional about them, and even go as far as to record them, watch them back, figure out one thing you want to improve the next time, you're going to be practicing those skills all the time. And of course, starting small and looking for those opportunities. So not just waiting for them to come to you, but look up storytelling events around you. Look up open mics. Look up schools that are looking for speakers to come and give talks on their career day. Speaking opportunities are all around you. They're not always glamorous, but they are absolutely necessary in terms of building your skill set as a speaker.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And can you share some specific example of places? Personally, I know just one, Toastmasters, for example, where you can exercise your speaking and get feedback and so on. But there are any other places or resources our listener can reach?
Yeah. So there are storytelling groups all over the world. There are things like open mics where you can go and tell your story. Typically, they're also used by singers or comedians or people that do freeform storytelling. You can literally just show up at these events and use them to practice your speaking skills. There are also online events that are also very similar in case there aren't any physically near you. And Toastmasters is definitely a huge community, a great resource as well. The only thing that I would say is something that you should consider before going to a Toastmasters meeting is understanding that you will be very uncomfortable if you're an introvert. Because I have had clients who've been a little bit traumatized by that experience. Not because Toastmasters is not beneficial. It absolutely is. I actually attend Toastmasters in French, and I really believe in the community. But if you're an introvert and you really feel extreme discomfort at being in the spotlight, start small. Really start with your own little circle of friends. Ask them over for dinner and say, I want to practice my speaking skills. Can I just give a little talk? It's going to be a little funny, a little weird, but it will absolutely work. It's what we call the village effect, where you start with your own village, your own zone of comfort, doing something uncomfortable, but having something familiar that reassures you that it's not entirely an alien environment. And then you make that comfort zone larger and larger, and then go and speak at different events. So really starting wherever you can is the best advice.
And I can confirm that definitely works. 2 months ago, I hosted a small workshop in a co-working space in Bali, and I invited all the people that I know to have a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. And of course, others came because it was a public event, but 90% of those attending are familiar faces, and it was so much easier to go through that presentation without a problem. Familiarity, it's such an underrated way to basically exercise and practice anything. And speaking of resources, I personally know that you have two, from what I'm aware, resources out there that can help anyone get traction with public speaking. One being the free course on your website and the other on LinkedIn. Can you share more about those?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have 2 courses on LinkedIn now. The second one was just launched and I haven't had a chance to talk too much about it. So there are 2 courses. They are both for free and they both help you speak better in different ways on stage and on camera. Something I always really try to do is make the tips that I share in my courses applicable to different scenarios, because the skill of public speaking, the skill of speaking to an audience remains the same, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're doing a webinar, or whether you're going and speaking in person on a stage. So you can look up those 2 courses on my profile. You can look up Nausheen Chen. I'm the only one on LinkedIn. And otherwise, I also have a 5-day course on building your confidence, which hasn't been launched yet at the time of recording this podcast, but hopefully will be by the time that we publish this. So for that, you can go on my website and you'll get instant access to this 5-day course where I go through the same exercises that I go through with my clients who pay thousands of dollars, and you're going to get them for free.
Awesome. I'll put as well the links in the show notes. And another disclosure, on Nausheen's website, she'll share a lot of valuable free resources, from newsletter to her PDFs, slides, that if you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you're missing out a lot when it comes to public speaking and building a personal brand. And apart from LinkedIn and your website, where else people can connect with you and work with you?
I basically live on LinkedIn. It's the platform where I am every day, all the time. This year, I would like to expand to being more active on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So you can find me there, but I'm not very active there yet. So LinkedIn is still the platform where you can start a conversation with me very easily. And hopefully when my website is launched, that's going to give you another way to reach out to me.
Before wrapping up with the traditional 24 hours challenge, I want to ask you something, since this is the Nomad Solopreneur Show. I know that at some point you traveled quite a bit and you went on some crazy trips around Nepal, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So Nepal was very special. Otherwise, I've traveled a lot for my corporate work, and then I traveled a lot for pleasure, pretty much all over the world. Nepal was very special to me because it was during that time that I was telling you about, my lovely late quarter life crisis, where I broke away from my job, my life, my family, and I just took a clean break. It was a time, I was in my late 20s. It was a very good time to reassess my entire life, my entire existence. And somehow I ended up in Nepal, and I spent a month, more than a month there, just without a plan, without an agenda, just being and existing. And it was very freeing. I think free was the right word to use, because when I was at work and I was living that life in my 20s, that corporate life, it was very regimented. It was very structured, and everything had a very specific timeline and a reason. And even I didn't have work. I was just sitting on a couch and watching TV. That was my life. So when I was in Nepal for the first time, I had free, unstructured time and no access to a comfy couch or a TV because I didn't have my own place. I was just going from Airbnb to Airbnb or hostel to hostel. So I really was forced to step out of that comfort zone and go out exploring, trying new food, making new friendships, figuring out what other people are doing in terms of their own personal journeys. I think Nepal is one of those special places where a lot of different kinds of people come together for different reasons, and they are at different points in their lives where they needed to just get out of their own comfort zone. So I made a lot of interesting friendships, met a lot of people, and just explored what other people were doing with life so that I could understand that the way that I had lived life was just one way of doing it, not the only way of doing it. So when I came back, I really was a changed person in many different ways.
And I think that's the beauty of going out of your comfort zone and actually travel to meet new people, to experience new cultures, new food, as you mentioned. Because all these small experiences can either trigger something in us, or you never know, you find out about an idea that you couldn't learn it in any other way. I have a personal experience like this, and this podcast is the fruit of that experience. I never thought to start a podcast, but I met a guy on a hike in the middle of the jungle in Thailand, and he was so confident in himself. I was afraid of being on camera or speaking. I was actually going through a coaching program back then. And he was, let's just do a Instagram live together and see how it goes. I was like, no way, live, not edited, me, nah. And he was like, I don't have a lot of followers, so no one will actually join probably the live. And in the end, I accepted, and I enjoyed so much. I feel so energized after that conversation. It's like, holy shit, I see myself doing this all day. And yeah, that's how the idea of starting a podcast came to life. And just by experiencing new thing, speaking of comfort zone, we were actually hiking barefoot through the bed of a river because it was so muddy and everything, and we didn't want to mess up our shoes. So yeah, it was a bit crazy and literally out of our comfort zone. But yeah, it was an enlightened experience. So yeah, I need to thank Ondra every time when I think about how this podcast came to life. So yeah, for anyone listening, get out of your comfort zone, start doing things because you never know what can happen.
That's awesome. I love that story because inspiration can really come from anywhere and from anyone. It reminds me of the story that Ruben once told me, Ruben Hassid, who's now a huge AI influencer. He got into ChatGPT because of a friendly competition with a friend. His friend was like, yeah, I think I could do this better than you. And he said, no way, I'm going to do this better than you. And that's how he got into it. And it changed his entire life. And that was because of one person and one silly little competition. So you really don't know what can motivate you, what can inspire you, what can drive you to completely change your life. All you have to do is to be open to that. And you were open to Andre's suggestion, right? It wasn't just him. You took that very important step. If you hadn't done it, if you had just said, oh, maybe another time, let's go get pizza. You could have done that, but you didn't.
Yeah, true. And Ruben's story is amazing. I chatted with him so many times, and I'm always inspired how he overturned things. And yeah, as you mentioned, from simple competition is just amazing. And to wrap things up, I would like to give our listener a 24-hour challenge around camera appearance, because a lot of people are camera shy, me including. And even now when I talk, you probably notice that I don't really make eye contact with the camera so often. So how people can improve their camera presence and their confidence in under 24 hours?
in under 24 hours. So they have to take that very first step of doing my 45-second speaking exercise. That's the very first thing. And record yourself. Absolutely. That's mandatory. Don't just do the exercise and forget about it. Record yourself using your phone. You're not doing it for anyone else. You're not doing it for social media. It's not going to go anywhere. This is a short video that you're recording just for yourself. Make sure that you have a timer. Do it for 45 seconds, not for 2 minutes. And make sure that you're watching yourself back. And that's something anyone can easily do in 24 hours. We all have cinema level cameras with us all the time. So record yourself and watch yourself back and look out for what you feel you're naturally strong in, whether it's your expressions, whether it's the fact that you're speaking clearly, whether it's the fact that you're using your body language, and notice what you might have as an opportunity area. Maybe you're just really robotic and you're not really saying anything much or expressing in any kind of way with your face. Maybe you're using your hands too much. Maybe your voice is monotonous. It could be any of those things. So this will really help in first getting you used to watching yourself on screen. It's really important, even if you don't want to be a video creator, because this is not just for content creators. It's so that you develop an understanding of where you're at. You develop that mindfulness of your own skill set. So that's the 24-hour challenge.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear what people are coming up with. And in the same time, I know, as Nausheen said, that you don't have to share it anywhere, but I will add a bonus challenge to this. Maybe after a few days, share it with us. Tag us on social media and Nausheen will give her opinion on it. And as Nausheen said, this is not just for content creation. This can open so many doors to you and opportunities that you cannot even think of. And public speaking is a skill that, in my opinion, anyone should try to improve, because without that, you're not able to speak clearly with your possible clients, colleagues, bosses, wherever. And all that is part of our day-to-day life. So public speaking is the way to go. And don't forget to follow Nausheen on LinkedIn, because she shares amazing tips, and check out her website. Thank you so much, Nausheen, for joining the show. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here. And thanks for sharing all the tips and the strategies that you use with your paying clients. And hopefully those listening took some notes and start applying with that. Knowledge is nothing without applying.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Gabe. This was a really interesting and comprehensive conversation. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure to check the show notes where you'll find direct links to the tools and resources mentioned in this episode, and much more. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast station to not miss when we drop the next one. We have lots of exciting guests and surprises for you coming up. This is your host, Gabe Marushka, with the Nomad Solopreneur Show. Until next week, Pura Vida!